We sat together during our usual afternoon tea after yoga class. Sunlight streamed softly through the window, pooling across the worn wooden table. Claire, the quiet, gentle woman who rarely spoke much, looked at me for a long moment that day. Then said, almost in a whisper, "Lynn, my daughter just got married. But I never told her I inherited $7 million from my husband." I was stunned. And then, she began to tell her story. What Claire shared that day wasn't just a story, it was a battle. A mother's battle. A quiet one. And yet, full of courage hidden behind years of calm composure. Today, I want to share it with you, not to dwell in pain, but as a reminder. Love, no matter how deep, must walk hand in hand with wisdom. And sometimes, silence is the sharpest weapon a mother can use to protect her child. I stood in my kitchen, holding my coffee mug so tight I thought it might shatter in my hands. Across from me sat my daughter, still glowing in her white dress, cheeks flushed with that newlywed softness. And right beside her, her new husband Brian, one arm draped casually over the back of her chair, a smile too wide, too polished. Then, he slid an envelope across the table. I didn't touch it. I didn't blink. This is just something we thought would make things easier in the long run. Brian said, that same oily smile plastered to his face. You know, legal stuff, asset alignment, future planning. Olivia beamed like a child eager to impress. It's just a formality, Mom. He's brilliant with finances. We're setting up a trust for when we have kids. You understand, right? My stomach twisted. The envelope was thick, yellow legal paper. Notarized, bound with a clip. But the worst part? It had my name on it. Just take a look when you can. Brian added as he stood up to clear his plate. As if the world hadn't just flipped upside down. We're off to our honeymoon tomorrow. This'll just save time later. I didn't say a word. I didn't open the envelope. Not until they left. Inside, my hands shook. There it was. In black ink, a financial agreement. Already drafted as if I had agreed to allocate part of my assets into a newly created family trust. A trust conveniently managed by Brian. He had no idea what he was reaching for. No one did. Not even my daughter knew I had inherited $7 million after my husband died. And I hadn't told a soul. Not her. Not the lawyers. Not even the bank, until I set up a private holding account under a name she'd never heard of. Thank God I said nothing. Because now I knew exactly what he was after. And he had no idea, I'd seen men like him before. Users. Snakes in expensive suits. Before I dive deeper, if this story resonates with you, if you've ever had to stay quiet just to protect what matters most, consider subscribing to the channel and giving this video a like. It helps more stories like this find the people who need to hear them. I wasn't just going to refuse the contract. I was going to test him. Because 3 days from now, I'd set a trap he'd never see coming. The bait? A fake transfer, the moment he tried to withdraw what he thought was part of my inheritance. I'd be watching his every move. But before I could even set the plan into motion, there was a knock at my door. It was 9 a.m. And when I opened it, it wasn't Brian. It was his lawyer. He stood there, early 20s. Too sharp for his age. Briefcase in one hand, the other already extended like this was some polite business call. Mrs. Harmon? He asked. I nodded, though I didn't trust myself to speak. My name is Carter Wells. I'm here representing Brian Hastings and Olivia Hastings regarding an urgent financial arrangement. I didn't move from the doorway. My daughter's name is Olivia Harmon. I said flatly. She didn't change it. He blinked, but recovered fast. Of course, my mistake. May I come in? This won't take long. I hesitated. Every instinct told me to slam the door shut. But curiosity, and something sharper, that need to know just how deep this rabbit hole went, made me step aside. He walked in like he owned the place. Set his briefcase right on the dining table, the same one where Olivia used to do her homework. This contract, he began, flipping open the case and pulling out a thick, glossy folder, is what we're calling a precautionary measure. Brian and Olivia have decided to combine their financial futures. Naturally, this includes any immediate family holdings that could benefit the trust. I didn't sit. I watched him from across the room. Arms folded. He didn't even flinch. Olivia signed this document yesterday morning before they left for the honeymoon. Brian asked that you add your signature before the end of the week, so it's all cleared before they return. I raised an eyebrow. Before they get back? Yes. It's really just a formal acknowledgement of the family alignment. Cut the fluff, I said coldly. Show me the section about the money. He hesitated for a beat, then slowly turned the contract around and pointed to a section labeled Section 7.2 Parental Estate Disclosures and Pre-Inheritance Trust Structures. In plain English, I was being asked to pre-declare any major assets or expected funds so they could be considered in the equitable trust distribution model. Translation? They wanted to know if I was hiding anything. I nearly laughed. They wanted my $7 million. I glanced at the dotted line above where I was supposed to sign. There it was, Olivia's signature. Her handwriting looked rushed, like she hadn't even read it. The lawyer closed the folder gently. This protects everyone involved, ma'am, especially in today's economy. You know how important proper planning is. Did Olivia actually read any of this? I asked. He gave a tight smile. They're young. They trust each other. Wrong answer. I stepped forward, placed both hands firmly on the table. Tell Brian he'll have to wait. I don't sign anything without my own legal team reviewing it. A flicker of surprise crossed his face. I understand. May I ask when they can expect your response? You'll have it, I said, when I decide to give it. He nodded, gathered his things, and left, polite, but clearly annoyed. And the second that door closed, I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. It had begun. They were circling. Brian knew, or at least suspected, that I had money. Olivia must have said something, maybe not the full truth. Maybe just a little hint. Mom's been doing well. She's been quiet about finances since Dad passed. It wouldn't take much for a man like Brian to start sniffing around. But I didn't blame Olivia. She was in love. She had always been trusting, too trusting. And after losing her father, she clung to Brian like he was the last life raft on a sinking ship. I watched it happen, helpless. No warning from me would have reached her. But now? Now it wasn't about love anymore. This was a move, a tactic, a power play, and I was no one's pawn. Would you have played along? Or stood your ground? And more importantly, what do you think Brian's next move will be now that he suspects there's more money involved than I let on? Let me know below, because trust me, the show's just getting started. That afternoon, I called my attorney, Greg. Something's off, I told him. They're pushing contracts too soon. My daughter just got married. And already we're talking about pre-inheritance alignment? He was quiet for a moment. You want me to review the document? No, I said. I want you to draft a decoy. Another pause. A decoy? I want a legal-looking document stating I inherited only $240 from my late husband. Create a fake bank trail to a small account. Make it look real enough, but unimpressive. So you want them to think the inheritance is already spent? Exactly. And I want it just traceable enough for someone like Brian to find. Nothing obvious, just suspiciously accessible. Greg paused again. And the real money? It's locked down in a blind trust. They'll never touch it. He exhaled slowly. You always were a step ahead. Claire. I had to be, I said. Remember how my husband's brother tried to snake the estate after the funeral? He gave a grim chuckle. Hard to forget. By the end of the week, Greg sent me everything. I left the decoy documents on my desk, casually, carelessly, just in case someone was snooping. And then I waited. 2 days. Nothing. Then on the third day, it came. Not from Brian. Not from Olivia. From the bank. There'd been a flagged attempt to access one of my older joint accounts. One that had been dormant for years. There was barely $5 in it. But whoever tried to get in used my maiden name. And only 2 people ever knew I kept money under that name. My late husband and Olivia. So either she let it slip, or Brian had guessed it. Either way, now I knew for sure. They were digging. That night, I sat alone in my study. The fake inheritance summary in one hand. Brian's original contract in the other. I made my decision. No more waiting. No more testing. It was time to confront him. But not with anger. With something he'd never expect, gratitude. Have you ever had to pretend to play nice just to protect the people you love? What would you have done if you were in my position? Tell the truth. Or bait the trap? I'd love to hear your thoughts, and just wait till you see what I planned next. The next morning, I called Olivia. Sweetheart, I said warmly, when are you two back from the honeymoon? She sounded surprised. Tomorrow? Why? Everything okay? Of course, I said with a smile she couldn't see. Tell Brian I have the papers ready. I'd love to go over them, with both of you. At lunch. My treat. Oh, that's great, Mom. He'll be so happy. A casual lunch with my daughter and her charming husband? Sounds innocent, right? But trust me, when you're dealing with snakes in suits, the best table to sit at is the one you've rigged yourself. Stick around, the real twist is just one meal away. He'll be so happy. I knew you'd understand. That's what Olivia said as we ended the call. I set my phone down and stared out the window. They thought they were about to win. What they didn't know was that they were about to sit down to a very different kind of meal. And the menu? A full serving of truth. Because when they arrived, I'd already booked a notary, set up a hidden camera, and asked Greg to join, not as my lawyer, but as a friend playing waiter. Let them bring their smiles and charm. I'd bring the $7 million in silence. And then, the real contract would be revealed. The one that showed exactly who owned what, and who had tried to lie about it. But before I could put it all into motion, I got one more message. It was from Olivia, just 2 short lines. Mom, we need to talk first. Please don't be mad. Brian said you threatened him. My heart went still. Brian was flipping the board faster than I expected. Now Olivia was unsure. Now I was the problem. I was being painted as the threat, and I hadn't even made a move yet. If you've ever had someone twist your intentions before you even spoke, you know how terrifying it is to lose control of your own narrative. But let me ask you, if someone accused you before you acted, would you keep going? Or pull back? I read Olivia's message 3 times. Brian said you threatened him. We need to talk. Please don't be mad. I sat frozen, the phone resting in my hand, the screen glowing like it was daring me to reply. I didn't. Not yet. This wasn't just a misstep, this was a tactic. Brian was smart. He knew I was suspicious. He knew I'd sniffed out his game. So he did what manipulators do best. He preemptively painted me as the villain. By the time they walked into the trap I had set, I wouldn't look like a mother protecting her legacy. I'd look like a bitter, paranoid widow trying to control her daughter's new life. He was cutting my credibility before I even opened my mouth. I had to act carefully now. No confrontation, no anger, just strategy and silence. I picked up the phone and called Greg. They're twisting it, I said as soon as he answered. I figured they would. He replied calmly. Are you sure you still want to go through with lunch? I nodded, though he couldn't see me. Yes, but we're not going in as lawyers. He caught on instantly. You want me there as backup, not as a threat. Exactly. No briefcase. Just sit, observe, and if anything goes wrong, record. I'll bring a pen and a receipt book, he said, with that dry sense of humor of his. The next day came faster than I expected. I reserved a quiet table at the private garden cafe Olivia used to love when she was little. A place with rose bushes, koi ponds, and waiters who knew not to hover. Quiet, scenic, expensive. The kind of place that makes people feel a little more civilized than they really are. They arrived right on time. Brian was dressed in a powder blue suit, like he was about to pitch $1 million deal on Shark Tank. Olivia wore a simple cream blouse. Her hand looped nervously through his arm. I could see the hesitation in her eyes before she even sat down. Hi Mom, she said gently. I stood, kissed her cheek, and greeted Brian with a smile I'd perfected over 20 years of fake charity luncheons. You look beautiful, Olivia. She smiled a little. The tension eased, just slightly. Then she saw Greg. Oh, is this my friend Greg? I said quickly. He's just joining for lunch. Works in insurance. Actually. Greg nodded politely. Pleasure to meet you both. You picked a good day. The chef's making duck confit. Brian didn't flinch. He shook Greg's hand and leaned back like he was still in control. We ordered salad for Olivia, steak for Brian, soup for me. We made small talk until the food came. Travel, the wedding, the weather. Brian recounted a half-funny story about how their luggage got lost and a concierge offered them his personal yacht as compensation. I nodded, smiled, waited. Then, finally, Brian leaned forward. Fork down, face softening. Claire, I want to clear the air. I never meant to pressure you. I just thought we could build something smart together, as a family. When Olivia told me about your husband's passing, and that you'd been managing the estate alone, I felt protective. I raised an eyebrow. Protective of me? Of Olivia, of her future, and by extension, your well-being too. I nodded slowly. That's very kind of you. Olivia looked between us, unsure. Then Brian reached into his coat pocket and pulled out the same folder I'd seen before. I brought the paperwork again, just in case you had time to think. He placed it gently on the table, like it was a gift. I took it and flipped through it slowly. Then reached into my handbag, and pulled out a document of my own. Not the real one. The decoy Greg had prepared. I placed it neatly on top of his folder. This is my inheritance disclosure, I said calmly. What do you think happens when a predator realizes the prey was never what it seemed? The trap is set, but do you think Brian will take the bait? Let me know what you'd do next. Because trust me, this lunch is far from over. My heart went still. Brian was flipping the board faster than I expected. Now Olivia was unsure. Now I was the problem. I was being painted as the threat, and I hadn't even made a move yet. If you've ever had someone twist your intentions before you even spoke, you know how terrifying it is to lose control of your own narrative. But let me ask you, if someone accused you before you acted, would you keep going? Or pull back? I read Olivia's message 3 times. Brian said you threatened him. We need to talk. Please don't be mad. I sat frozen, the phone resting in my hand. The screen glowing like it was daring me to reply. I didn't. Not yet. This wasn't just a misstep, this was a tactic. Brian was smart. He knew I was suspicious. He knew I had sniffed out his game. And so, he made his move before I could. He planted the story, that I was unhinged, controlling, jealous of their happiness. By the time they showed up to lunch, I wouldn't be the wise mother protecting her future. I'd look like a bitter woman clinging to control. And that was the most dangerous part. Because now, I couldn't just win. I had to win without looking like I ever played. $240, remaining after debt clearances and legal fees. It's all I have left. Brian's eyes flicked to the document. He didn't touch it, but I saw the math happening in his head. That amount was too small to build a trust around. Too small to be worth manipulating me for. Too small to justify the risks he'd already taken. Like involving a lawyer. And forging Olivia's blind signature on that addendum. He smiled politely, but I saw the storm behind his eyes. Olivia leaned forward. Wait, what? That's all that's left? I looked her straight in the eye. Your father had more debt than I told you. I didn't want to burden you after the funeral. Her face fell. But you seemed okay? I manage, I said softly. I sold the lake house. Cut back. I just didn't want you to worry. She swallowed hard. Oh. Brian reached for his drink. His smile was still there, but thinner now. Strained. I see, he said simply. Greg watched silently, hand resting on his pen. The tension at the table felt like the air before a thunderstorm. And then I added the final detail. After this lunch, I said gently, I'll be closing that account and rolling it into a modest annuity for retirement. Nothing fancy, but it'll last me. Brian blinked, then stood up. I need the restroom, he said with a short laugh. Too much espresso this morning. He walked off, folder still sitting on the table. As soon as he was out of earshot, Olivia leaned in. Mom, did you really threaten him? I looked her dead in the eye. No, but I did say I wouldn't sign anything without legal review. And that must have scared him. She looked away. He said you called him a liar. I said nothing. Because I had. Silently. In my mind. She wasn't ready to hear the whole truth. Not yet. Brian returned, calm again. Too calm. He sat down, folded the folder, and slipped it back into his pocket. You know what? He said. You're right, Claire. I rushed things. We're a new family. We should build trust the old-fashioned way. I smiled, tight-lipped. That sounds nice. Lunch ended with polite smiles and stilted hugs. But as I watched them walk away, Something gnawed at me. Brian wasn't the type to walk away empty-handed. And I knew, deep down, I hadn't won yet. If someone let go too easily, would you believe they truly gave up, or would you start checking your locks? What would you have done if you were me? Let me know in the comments. Because I could feel it, this game wasn't over. 2 nights later, it happened. I woke up to a call from my banker. There was a withdrawal request for $240, she said. Initiated through your old digital profile. We flagged it as suspicious. The device was unfamiliar. I froze. What device? Someone logged in using Olivia's tablet, from the hotel they stayed in after the wedding. I didn't need to guess who it was. He had seen the fake inheritance document. He believed it, and now, he'd tried to take all of it. The only problem? That account was empty. It was a dummy. But what scared me more was that he had access to Olivia's device, which meant she had given him her passwords. Full access. Possibly unknowingly opening the door to everything. I hung up and called Olivia. No answer. I tried again. Still nothing. Then came a text. Hey mom, we're resting. Can we talk tomorrow? Resting. Right. I didn't sleep that night. Because I wasn't just dealing with a gold digger anymore. I was dealing with a thief. And the worst part? He was sleeping beside my daughter. The house felt colder than usual, even though the thermostat said otherwise. I walked from room to room like a ghost, locking windows, checking drawers, peeking through curtains, as if Brian might suddenly appear on my porch, smiling wide, carrying another friendly contract. But I knew he wouldn't come through the front door anymore. He was already inside our lives, inside Olivia's heart. And the worst part? She had no idea. Have you ever watched someone you love hand their trust to the wrong person, and known there was nothing you could say that they'd believe? That's where I was, and time was running out. By 6 a.m., I was curled in my armchair, wrapped in a blanket, staring at the blank TV screen. I hadn't turned it on all night. The silence helped me think, helped me plot. When the sun finally rose over the treetops, I stood up, made coffee, and called Greg. He answered on the first ring. He tried to withdraw the fake money. I said quietly, from Olivia's tablet. Greg didn't sound surprised. He's bolder than I thought. Or dumber. Or both. I rubbed my forehead. I need a digital trail. Something that shows it wasn't me logging in. Can you help? Already on it, he said. We'll get the IP address, the device signature, even the timestamp. Then he paused. But Claire, we might be running out of time. I know, I whispered. I ended the call and stared down into my coffee. This wasn't about money anymore. It was about control. And about saving my daughter. From a man who would use her, drain her, then walk away with whatever he could carry. Later that morning, I sent Olivia a message. Come to the house. Just you. No Brian. Just us. She replied quickly. Why? What's going on? Just come. I made that lemon cake you love. She agreed. By 2 p.m., I heard her car pull into the driveway. Would you have done the same? Invited your daughter over with cake, knowing the truth might burn the air between you? Or would you have stayed quiet? Tell me, because the next moment was the hardest one of all. I peeked through the blinds. She was alone. Good. She walked in slowly, hesitantly, her eyes scanning the room like she expected cameras or a confrontation. I greeted her with a hug. She didn't return it right away. We sat down at the kitchen table, the same one where I used to braid her hair before school. I need to talk to you, I said, sliding her a slice of lemon cake. Really talk. She looked down at it. Okay. I didn't hold back. I know Brian tried to access an account that wasn't his. He used your tablet. He triggered a fraud alert. Her face went pale. What? No, he wouldn't. He did. He guessed there was money. I left a fake document to see what he'd do. Olivia's eyes filled with tears. You set him up? I leaned forward. I protected you. I didn't want to believe it either. But I had to know who he really is. She shook her head and stood suddenly. This is insane. You're spying on us. Manipulating me. I'm trying to stop you from being robbed blind. He loves me. I stood too. Then ask him why he went into your tablet. Ask him what he was trying to take. I don't. He wouldn't. He said, you were paranoid. That you hated him. Because I saw him for what he is. She grabbed her purse. Tears falling now. I can't do this, she said. I need space. Olivia, please. But she was already out the door. She drove off fast. And I stood there, heartbroken, watching the dust settle on the gravel road. I had just pushed her away. And Brian? He'd win if I lost her. Have you ever tried to protect someone and ended up becoming the enemy in their eyes? It's one of the worst pains, watching them walk away, into the arms of someone who's hurting them. Let me know if you've ever faced that kind of silence. I went back inside and sat down. My chest tight. I hadn't cried in years. But now the tears came fast. Then Greg called. I got the data. He said. Confirmed. It was Brian. I can put it in a report. Good. I whispered. It won't matter if Olivia hates me, she won't. She left, but she'll come back. There was a pause, then Greg said something that changed everything. Claire. What if we go further? I sniffled. Further. How? Expose him. Publicly. Greg, you still have those wedding videos, right? The reception speeches? Yes. Let me review them. Maybe he slipped. Maybe he bragged. Greg, number. Listen, he's arrogant. He talks too much. If he hinted about money in front of anyone, we can make it count. I nodded slowly. Okay. I'll send everything. That night, I watched the footage again, not just from the professional videographer, but from guests' Instagram stories, live streams, even shaky phone clips Olivia had sent me, and then I found it Brian, standing with a drink in hand, surrounded by friends. The camera was a bit far, but the audio, it was clear enough. He was laughing, smug, confident. One of his friends asked, so what's next? Man, you married rich? And Brian replied, loud and proud, not yet, but give me a month. You'll see. His friends laughed. He lifted his drink like he'd just sealed a deal. I paused the video. Heart pounding there. It was arrogance, caught on camera. I sent it to Greg. He replied instantly. Got it. This is gold. Let me prep something. Imagine catching the moment someone brags about stealing, before the crime even happens. If you were me, would you use it now, or hold it until the very last moment? Tell me below, because I already knew what I had to do next morning. I had a new plan. I picked up the phone, and I called Olivia. Again, no answer. I tried later. Still nothing. Then, I got a message. Brian and I need time. Please respect our space. That was it. No, Mom. No warmth. Just space. But I didn't have time to wait anymore. So I went to her. I drove to their apartment, a slick condo complex with security gates and rooftop views. When I buzzed her unit, Brian answered. Claire, he said flatly. I need to speak with Olivia. She's sleeping. It's 10 a.m. She's tired. I'll wait. A pause. She doesn't want to see you. I didn't move. You can't keep her from me. I'm not, he said. She just doesn't want drama. I exhaled through my nose. Fine. I turned and walked away. But not before slipping the USB stick I brought into their mailbox. It had the wedding video clip. Let him try to explain that I didn't hear from Olivia for 2 days. Then finally, she showed up at my house. Alone. Eyes swollen from crying. Hands shaking. She walked inside without a word and sat down. I watched the video. She whispered. I sat beside her. She didn't look at me. I asked him about it. She said. He said it was just a joke, that guys say dumb stuff. I stayed quiet. But I checked his browser history. She continued, voice breaking. He looked up how to access trust funds, how to bypass account authentication. I reached for her hand. She let me hold it. I'm so sorry. She sobbed, and finally, I let myself cry too, but just as we held each other, her phone buzzed on the table. She wiped her eyes, looked at it, then stared at me. It's Brian, she said, voice flat. He says he's lawyered up. I stiffened. What? He says if I try to leave, he'll sue me for fraud. That he has a prenup. That he'll expose me for using his money for the wedding. But you didn't, I said. She shook her head. No. But my name's on everything. I leaned back in my chair. So this was his next move. If he couldn't steal from me, he'd bleed Olivia dry. He was going to destroy her, to get even. And if we didn't act fast, he just might succeed. I stood in front of my daughter. My heart breaking for the second time in 2 weeks. She was pale, trembling, completely stripped of the joy she had just days earlier. The honeymoon smile? Gone. The sparkle in her eyes? Faded. And the worst part? She hadn't just lost a marriage. She was starting to lose faith in herself. Brian had done what men like him always do. Charmed his way in. Took control of everything. And now that the mask had slipped, he was threatening to burn her life to the ground. Not on my watch. I took Olivia's phone from the table and scrolled through the message Brian had sent. Don't even think about pulling anything. You signed the agreement. I'll take this to court, and I'll win. Below that, screenshots of documents she didn't even remember signing. Bank transfers in both their names. A receipt for a wedding ring purchased using her joint account with him. He was preparing for this the whole time. I whispered. Olivia nodded, crying quietly. I feel so stupid, she said. You're not stupid, I told her. You were in love. He just wasn't. I called Greg. He picked up on the first ring. She's here. He's threatening legal action. Good, Greg said. Then it's time we play our card. He'd been waiting for this moment. Greg had already drawn up our counteroffensive. A full report. Digital forensics. Device fingerprints. IP logs. And the video of Brian bragging. All packaged in a way that would crush him in court. You want me to send this to his lawyer? Greg asked. No, I said. Not yet. Then what? I want to meet him. Face to face. With Olivia. Greg paused. Claire, I need him to see what we know. I need him to look me in the eye and realize the game is over. He agreed. We set the meeting for the following afternoon. I chose a public place. A lawyer's office downtown. All glass walls and cameras. Greg would be there. Quiet. In the corner. Olivia too. I told her she didn't have to come. But she insisted. I need to see his face when he realizes I'm done. We arrived early. Brian showed up 10 minutes late. Smug as ever. Have you ever waited in silence, knowing everything was about to turn? What would you say to someone who threatened your child and thought they'd get away with it? Because Brian had no idea. I had just walked him into checkmate. He was wearing a black turtleneck and sunglasses. Like he thought he was some kind of celebrity. He smiled when he saw us. But it didn't last. Greg handed him a folder. This is a courtesy copy of our findings. Brian flipped through the first few pages. And I saw it. The shift. His face twitched. His lips parted slightly. His posture stiffened. He knew he was caught. There's no crime here, he said quickly. You can't prove anything. You're right, Greg replied. There's no crime, yet. But what we have is enough to open several investigations. Identity misuse. Financial manipulation. Fraudulent coercion of contracts. Brian scoffed. Your voice is on video. I added quietly. You said, and I quote, give me a month, you'll see. And you tried to move funds from my daughter's account, without her permission. He turned to Olivia. His eyes narrowed. You told them. She didn't flinch. No, she said. You did. He slammed the folder shut. What do you want? He snapped. I leaned forward. You're going to disappear. He raised an eyebrow. You're going to walk away. I continued. Sign an annulment. Release Olivia from any shared accounts, properties, or legal claims. No court. No battle. He laughed bitterly. Or what? Greg pulled out a second folder. Or this goes public. And the local paper gets a story about a man who married for money. And got caught. We already have a reporter waiting. I added. One email, and it's done. Brian looked at all three of us. He was cornered. And he knew it. You think you can just push me out? He hissed. No, I said calmly. You pushed yourself out. We're just making it official. He stared at Olivia, like he still expected her to crack. She didn't. She slid a pen across the table. He picked it up slowly. And signed. Every last page. When it was done, he stood, fixed his sunglasses, and walked out. Without another word. Just like that. Gone. Olivia broke down the moment the door clicked shut. I wrapped my arms around her, rocking gently like I used to when she was small. It's over, I whispered. You're safe now. But she pulled back, tears still in her eyes. No, Mom, it's not over. Not until I fix what I broke with you. I blinked. You didn't break anything. Yes, I did. I didn't listen. I doubted you. I let him twist the truth. I smiled gently. You believed in love. That's not a crime. That's being human. We left the office together. The sun was setting. casting long shadows across the sidewalk that evening. We made dinner at home, nothing fancy. Just pasta and garlic bread, but it felt warm again, peaceful, over the table. She asked me one last question. Is it true? She said. About the money? I paused, then nodded. Yes. I did inherit 7 million. Her eyes widened slightly. Why didn't you tell me? Because I wanted to protect you. From him. From greed. From what money does to people. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. From now on, she said softly. No more secrets. I nodded and we ate. Finally. Not as a broken family. Not as a mother trying to save her daughter. But as 2 women who had made it through the storm. Together. This has been Lynn, and you've been listening to another true story from the heart. See you next time. And remember, silence can be power. But truth is freedom. Claire's story stayed with me long after that afternoon. Not because of the inheritance, but because of how quietly and fiercely she protected what mattered most, her daughter. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't beg. She simply stood her ground, with love in one hand and strategy in the other. It made me think, how many mothers have been misunderstood, even resented, not because they were wrong, but because they saw the danger before anyone else did? And now I want to ask you something. If you were in Olivia's shoes, if your mother raised the alarm about your partner, would you listen to her? Or would you stand by the person you love? Even if something inside you hesitated, would you stand with your mother? Or side with your husband? Leave me a comment below. I'd really love to hear how you see this and if Claire's story meant something to you today. Please consider liking the video or sharing it with someone who needs to hear it. Because sometimes, the most powerful love stories aren't about romance. They're about mothers who never stopped watching the door. This has been Lynn, and this was a story I'll never forget.